Welcome everyone to the Spinoza Havurah, the Zoom Shul. I'm your service leader today, James Branum. And just a few reminders that we are an international participatory community and we do our best to give everyone a chance to read and share. So along the way, there will be some readings. Most of them are in English. I think we have some, though, alternate possibilities in Portuguese, and we also have some in Hebrew. So if anyone wants to read any of these, feel free to use the raise hand or just unmute yourself. Some of them I'll do, but a lot of them I'll be asking for volunteers for. And it makes it a lot more special the more people we have participating. Also, a few logistical details. Of course, we do record our services that we talked about earlier. Also, we do ask everyone to be mindful that we come from many different parts of the world and come from many different backgrounds. And so please be mindful of that and treat each other with dignity and respect, but especially in our discussions. We is a Jewish community, we really try to model the idea of respectful dialogue. And so that's really important to us. Also, just a reminder to please remember to mute if you're not talking. It helps to control the background noise. Also, I don't mind if you use the chat function during the services. My computer setup's a little different than Martin's. He does it a little differently, but for me, I don't mind if you use the chat. It helps me sometimes actually know if you need to get my attention. So feel free to use the chat. And finally, if you're driving, please turn off the video just because it makes people a little bit nervous. So just get us moved into this time. I thought we might start with a Nagun. Ya la da 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 ya la da 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 Ine matov manahim sheveramim gam yakad Hine matov manayim sheveramim gam yakad. Hine matov sheveramim gam yakad. Hine matov sheveramim gam yakad. Hine matov manahim Sheveramim gam yakad. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for people to dwell together. Love life with happiness. Come into community with joy. And in the future, we have a song here that goes with this. I couldn't get the video to work on that this morning, so we'll save that for another time, unfortunately. Who would like to read this in either English or Portuguese or both? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Listen, Israel, we are all one, and our purpose is one. Come, let us work together to improve this world.
Shema Yisrael, Kulanu Echad, V'Yodeinu Echad. Hava na'avod letakin et haolam kazeh. And who would like to read this reading?
We place these words in our hearts and souls, bind them as a sign on our hands, and they will be a reminder between our eyes. We will teach them to our children, and we will talk about them while we are sitting in our homes, walking on the road, lying down, and getting up. And we will write them on the doorposts of our houses and on our gates, and may our days and the days of our children be prolonged for as long as the heavens are above the earth.
And let's take a moment to pause for some silent reflection. Well, I think this is a good time to transition to a bit of Devar Torah and some discussion about this week's Torah portion. So I'm going to go ahead. Let me get this queued up real quick on Safaria, and we're going to be looking at. Let me see. So let me share. I'm going to share this link in the chat because I know a lot of times it's easier to follow on Safari on your own device as well. So I'll put that in the chat. But we're going to be looking at a little bit of Torah portion Bo, and in particular, we'll be looking at in Exodus chapter 12, starting in verse 33. So let me share screen now for this, and we'll read this, and then I have a few thoughts to kind of start our conversation. But from there, I'm really hoping to hear for you all what thoughts you have from this text. So starting in verse 33, and right before this was the last of the 10 plagues, the death of the firstborn. And so this is where it picks up in verse 33. The Egyptians urged the people on, impatient to have them leave the country, for they said, "We shall all be dead." So the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls wrapped in their cloaks upon their shoulders. The Israelites had done Moses' bidding and borrowed from the Egyptians objects of silver and gold and clothing. And God had disposed the Egyptians favorably toward the people, and they let them have their request. Thus they stripped the Egyptians. The Israelites journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 fighting men on foot, aside from non-combatants. Moreover, a mixed multitude went up with them, and very much livestock, both flocks and herds. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough that they had taken out of Egypt. For it was not leavened, since they had been driven out of Egypt and could not delay, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves. The length of time that the Israelites lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430th year, to the very day, all the ranks of God departed from the land of Egypt. That was for God a night of vigil to bring them out of the land of Egypt. That same night is God's, one of vigil for all the children of Israel throughout the ages. God said to Moses and Aaron, "This is the law of the Passover offering. No foreigner shall eat it. But any male slave you have brought may eat of it once he has been circumcised. No bound or hired laborer shall eat of it. It shall be eaten in one house. You shall not take any of the flesh outside of the house, nor shall you break a bone of it. The whole community of Israel shall offer it. If a stranger who dwells with you would offer the Passover to God, all his males must be circumcised. Then he shall be admitted to offer it. He shall then be as a citizen of the country, but no uncircumcised man may eat of it. There shall be one law for the citizen and for the stranger who dwells among you." And all the Israelites did so, as God had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. That very day, God freed the Israelites in the land of Egypt, troop by troop. Okay, so that's the text I want to look at this morning. There are some challenging aspects of this text, obviously, for humanists. To begin with, of course, God is the primary character in how this is depicted. God is doing various things. And throughout the Exodus story, we see God pulling the strings, most famously and controversially when it talks about God hardening Pharaoh's heart. As humanists, obviously, we don't think God intervenes in the world in that kind of way. It's just not how it works. If there is a God, that's not how it works. And many of us think there isn't a God. And so what do we do with this text? Well, I think one of the most important aspects of this text, of course, is its place as a liberation story, a story of a people who are being freed from slavery. And this is one of the earliest recorded examples that we know of a story of slaves being liberated in this kind of way. And so to me, from that standpoint, it has a great deal of significance. But I wanted to particularly focus on one aspect of this text this morning, and that's found in verse. Who's had this right in front of me? Well, it's the yeah. So in verse 38, it says a mixed multitude went up with them. I looked in another translation. It says a diverse crowd went up. So what do they mean by this? A mixed multitude, a diverse crowd. My inclination is that what they're talking about is that when the Hebrews were freed from slavery, they were not the only people who left Egypt. There were many other slaves, other people, oppressed people of Egyptian society who left with them. In other words, the mythical idea that the Jewish people or the Hebrews are the predecessors of the Jews were a purified people that were completely set apart, not exactly accurate. Rather, what we're speaking of is this is a community of people that is taking on an identity, that is becoming its own people, but it is also is a people with very diverse origins. Now, what I find interesting is a little bit later in this text, starting like around verse 43 and downward, it talks about saying that foreigners can't eat at the Passover meal. Now, I find that super interesting because today, Jewish minhag is not that way. Many Jews invite non-Jews to Passover seders today. That is extremely common, even encouraged. And so this is one example of how our tradition has evolved and changed over time. But also the fact that the compilers of the Exodus text felt it was necessary to put that in says that they're acknowledging from the get-go this community that's leaving Egypt is a mixed multitude. They're not all Hebrews. They're not all Israelites. They are a mixed community. Now, it does seem to indicate many of them would become Israelites because it talked about that if a foreigner wants to partake, is going to be living with the people, if their males become circumcised, they are now treated as being Israelites. But so there is still a distinction here in the text, but nevertheless, it's acknowledging that from the get-go, from the very beginnings, Jewish diversity has been in our DNA from the very beginning. And so that to me is the main point I take of this text this morning, that as Jews, we are a motley group of people. We are a mixed multitude. We come from many places. Some of us are converts to Judaism. I am. Others in this community are. Others come from different parts of the Jewish world, from Sephardic traditions, from Ashkenazi traditions, from Mizrahi traditions. And yet we are all drawn together through this story of liberation. I also think at this moment in time, and I'm not going to dwell on this a great deal because this is Shabbat, a time of peace, but for a lot of us, these are heavy times in our broader society and world. A lot of fearful things are happening in the world. There's a lot of really horrible things happening, and it can feel very overwhelming. And it's often also, these are times when our societies are telling us to be divided, telling us that we should see ourselves as separate, that other people are out to take away things from us. I think this text is reminding us that no, we're called to be in solidarity. We are called to be in solidarity with other oppressed people. And that when we achieved our liberation, we didn't do it alone. Others came with us. And in the same way, in all the struggles for justice and peace in the world right now, Jewish people, sometimes we are the ones fleeing oppression. Other times, we're called to be the ones in solidarity with those who are in oppression. So those are my thoughts on this text, but I bet you all have some thoughts. So I thought for the next 10, 15 minutes or so, we might have some conversation to see what this text might take us. And so feel free to unmute yourself and let's open this up for some conversation.
I'm sorry, I'm having.
There we go. We can hear you now. Oh no, you muted yourself again.
Yeah, you're muted again, Suzanne.
Sorry. My mute's become ultra sensitive and I don't know why. My apologies to all. Jane, it's interesting that you remarked on this because I've always, every year when I watch the Ten Commandments, because to me, part of watching the movie The Ten Commandments is part of celebrating Passover. When Moses's Egyptian mother, and I'm not using that term any other way in which it was intended, she did consider herself his mother. Um, when she shows up at the house the night that Passover was actually occurring, and she said the Egyptians had freed her, she asked not only could she come in, but could her bearers come in? And her bearers looked to be African. Um, I think she referred to them as Nubians. And there was a negative reaction from someone who was already in the house, and Moses spoke up and said, no, she is more than welcome. She raised me. On top of that, everyone was welcomed in the house. And like I said, every year it always strikes me that it's already you're getting that dichotomy of who's a Jew, who's not a Jew, and just I always just found it interesting that they managed to include that aspect in the movie.
Mm. Is that the Ten Commandments? Is that the one, the Charlton Heston one back
The
in the day?
Charlton Heston movie, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to read. My family, we always watch the Prince of Egypt, the animated one, but we may have to add that one, the Charlton Heston one, to our mix. I don't think I've seen that in ages.
Yeah, like I said, it always every year it always strikes me as very unusual that gee, they're saying, well, who's a Jew? Who can celebrate? Who's allowed to be free? And Moses speaks up, and I always, like I said, every year it always strikes me. So
Mm. Thank you for sharing that.
It was new to me to have the idea that anyone who wanted to leave could leave, could just add themselves to the mix. That was new to me. That was interesting to learn about.
Hmm.
Well, I like your thoughts, James, and I also have been attending the classes on Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings with Rabbi Zema Yore that he's offered up to anybody in our Havurah to join if they wish, and he of course subscribes to the supplementary theory of the creation of the Torah, and I've learned a lot more about it from him, and I would agree with most of his ideas. And it's interesting to note how when we get to the oldest kernel of the story, which is the Elohist tradition, Moses plays more of a front seat position, and God is kind of more in the back, and which is something I find kind of positive in a way. It's when the
Hmm.
Yahwist tradition comes in and layers on Yahweh God as being behind him, and Yahweh takes a more um, centered position. Um, that in the initial story, Moses is more like a magician, and and that kind of caught me because I've also been studying up on Jewish mysticism, with the book, of course, that was recommended in our class by his name was Gershom Scholem, Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism. And it was interesting that he said the oldest piece of the Torah that they have in Israel in the museum is actually an amulet. So magic was very much a part of Jewish tradition, and he proves that. I know on the humanist side, perhaps we don't really get drawn to it, but the whole idea of myth, and to immerse ourselves in the myth, is spiritually beneficial in some ways. Which brings us to your points, where when I uh, get drawn to the story of the Exodus, as other than the Cecil B. DeMille's Ten Commandments, which I've seen many times, I think of Martin Luther King which I believe you just celebrated down there,
Mm-hmm.
and about the oppression of that was relatively recent and still exists, and that our leaving Egypt as well is not just a physical act that occurred once in history, that we're kind of doing it all the time, both uh, in what's going on in our society, and even internally, even our own within ourselves, that we're sort of trying to liberate ourselves too, perhaps from our own ignorance and prejudices and things like that. Um, anyway, and I posted, just so you know, an article by Rabbi Zore on the Spinoza Havurah's website, where he talks about that, because he posted a lot of articles that anybody can see on the Torah.com, where he gets into the plagues and how many there really were originally, how many were added on by the Yahwist, how many were added on by the priestly, and why they did it. And
Mm.
it's quite interesting. And I'll close with that.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I do find it interesting that, too, that this reading happens in the Torah reading cycle a few months before Passover, and so I kind of like it in that it's kind of reminding us that Passover is coming. It's time to start getting your Haggadah ready. It's time to be considering what intention you want to bring to Passover this year. So I really appreciated this. The timing of this Torah portion was nice. It was also as exciting because I just got Martin's new humanistic Haggadah in the mail a couple days ago. So it seemed especially auspicious, this Torah portion lining up when I got the new Haggadah. Aaron.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Um, Aaron from Dallas, Texas. So, when I was Orthodox, I discovered that not everybody was down for the Erev Rav, which was a very nasty word or term or description in the where I was in the Orthodox group I was, trying to be in, and they did not allow non-Jews to come to the Passover Seder to get tickets.
Mm.
And it was not okay, for folks, for relatives who had converted to Christianity or convert or whatever it was, I mean, it was a shanda still. This was still and so, anyway, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I'm not that I'm a humanist and not Orthodox. But yeah, my family used to have 70 of us get together in a hotel. This was the Reform side of the family. And sadly, the elder matriarchs who used to get everyone together and organize us and pull family from all over, they'd come from all over. Those elders died.
Mm.
And then, COVID hit. And unfortunately, it just scattered us to the winds. So now we're just little groups of cousins in the DFW area who, don't get together anymore. And it's just been sad. But anyway, Passover has some traumatic memories for my family and I guess for me. And I won't. I'll try to cut it short, but anyway, just all of the super rigid food rules, cleaning rules, the insanity. Unfortunately, it's part of my tshuva process of healing, recovery, and atonement for all the craziness for 15 years that I inflicted the Orthodox thing on my family. But anyway, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad everybody's here, and hugs to everyone, and I pass.
Thank you. Well, we will have some more time after the service for more discussion. So if you have any more thoughts that you didn't get a chance to share, definitely stay tuned towards the end. We'll have some more time for conversation. And also we can all update each other on what the weather has done over the last hour. It's really snowing here now. It's kind of fun. I'm watching out the window. There's a bird feeder right out the window, and I'm seeing a bird come every once in a while. It's a very nice way to spend Shabbat. So let's see. And so now we have a reflection or a prayer. I'll go ahead and read this one. May every person held hostage be returned safely to their families and communities. May those who have returned find healing, support, and renewed dignity. May all who suffer in Gaza, civilians, hungry, displaced, and in need of care, return to homes that are rebuilt, safe, and nurturing. We affirm our shared hope for a day when Israelis and Palestinians, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and all who live between river and sea can dwell securely among their fig trees and grapevines in Tel Aviv, in Ramallah, in Gaza City without fear. May we work toward a future without needless deaths, without terror or despair, without lives cut short. May we commit to safety, justice, self-determination, and a healthy future for every people and every child in this land. May peace come soon, and may we help bring it. Let us say, Amen. And we now turn our minds and hearts towards those who need our love, who are ill, who are lonely, who suffer pain, and who have been wronged. Let us pause as we call out their names.
Karen and Susie.
Mary Harchick,
Jean, Javier, John,
Robert Astor,
Jacob,
to those who long for healing, refuah shlema, with compassion and with feeling, we say refuah shlema. There's a light inside you that is there to guide you, to help you find the strength you need. Refuah shlema. And may you feel a sense of peace. Refuah shlema.
Before we go on, did y'all hear the music that just played?
Yes, we did.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
I haven't used PowerPoint like this before, so I didn't know if I did the screen share right. So thank you so much. Let us stand as we recall those who are no longer with us. If you're remembering anyone at this point in time, please say their names aloud. Rabbi Jeff Goldman.
Kyle, Ivan, Irene, Joseph, Helen.
Amen. Diane's father, Milton.
May there be a good remembrance and compassion and kindness and love from all the world upon our honorable loved ones who are no longer present. Let us make a name and a place in our hearts to remember their good names, and let us honor them with good deeds. May their memory be for a blessing. Amen. And who would like to do this reading?
I'll try. Okay. And we, humanity, keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant. For 6 days they worked, and on the seventh day they rested and were refreshed. Therefore, let us bless the Sabbath day and sanctify it. Blessed is the light in life, and blessed is the fruit of the vine to life.
Amen. If we can eat and drink together, we can live and love together. So let us bless those that bring forth bread from the earth. Nevarek et hamamotzim lekim min haaretz. Amen. May this Shabbat bring you its light, joy, and peace. And Shabbat Shalom. So we will leave. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recorder in just a moment. Yeah, I'll go ahead and turn off the recorder, but we will leave the Zoom up for a bit longer. If anyone wants to chat, we'll have some time for just to connect a little bit longer. But it's so good to see everyone today. And also just a reminder for those of you who will be watching later and recording, if you're not on our email list, please email us at spinozahavurah@gmail.com to get on our email list. And also a reminder, most of our past services are online on YouTube. Just search for Spinoza Havurah. And other than that, it's great to see everyone. And for those of you watching remotely later, again, we always like to hear from you. Shoot us an email. Just let us know you're watching. We always appreciate any of your input. So, and Shabbat Shalom.